seems like AI is everywhere these days.
Yeah, it's like everyone's talking about it all of a sudden. It's on our phones, it's in our cars, even...
Writing articles.
Yeah, writing articles,
Yeah.
composing music. I mean, it's really a lot to keep up with, especially if you're not, a tech expert or something.
Right, and that's kind of what we're doing today, right? We're trying to break this down.
Exactly. And we're going to be unpacking, we're going to be looking at this blog post from the LeaseWeb blog.
Okay.
And hopefully by the time we're done, anyone listening who maybe isn't familiar with AI will have a good grasp on what it is and what it's all about.
So when we talk about AI, are we talking about something that's just popped up in the last couple of years, or?
That's a great question. And actually, no. The idea of machines showing intelligence, which is basically what AI is,
Right.
has been around since the 1950s.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so it's got a history.
Okay, so we're not talking about some brand new futuristic thing, but still, what exactly is AI? What sets it apart from just regular computer stuff?
Yeah, so AI, or artificial intelligence, is all about creating systems that can do things we usually think of as needing like human smarts.
Okay.
Things like learning and solving problems,
Wow.
and even understanding language.
Okay.
So basically creating machines that can, in a way, think.
Oh, wow. So instead of telling the computers you know exactly what to do step by step, we're teaching them to kind of figure things out on their own.
Exactly, and that's really where its power comes in.
Yeah.
Think about like a search engine.
Okay.
You know how a search engine can sift through millions of websites and give you relevant results?
Right.
That's AI at work.
Huh. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So it's not just robots and sci-fi stuff, but how does a machine actually learn? Do they have like tiny robot brains or something?
Well, not quite tiny brains, but the idea is similar.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Think of AI like a recipe.
Okay.
You've got your ingredients,
Yep.
which in this case are huge sets of data. Then you've got your instructions, which is the AI model. And when you combine them the right way, you get an outcome, the AI's predictions or solutions.
So we're feeding information to these AI models, and they're learning from it to give us answers.
Exactly. And what makes it really interesting is that these models are designed to be self-learning.
Oh, wow.
They analyze the data, they find patterns, and they improve their predictions over time, just like we learn from experience.
So it's not about programming a computer with, this fixed set of rules.
Right.
It's about letting it learn and adapt.
Exactly.
That's pretty wild.
Mm.
But if it's learning on its own, how can we be sure it's giving us reliable information?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and that's something that, researchers are constantly working on.
Right.
It really comes down to understanding how the model was trained,
Okay.
what kind of data it used, and whether there might be biases built into the process.
So transparency is key.
Exactly.
We need to know how the AI is making decisions.
Yeah.
Sort of like a show your work policy for robots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And as AI becomes more complex, that transparency becomes even more important. But let's zoom in a bit.
Well.
Within the broad field of AI, there's a specific area that's been driving a lot of the recent progress: machine learning.
Machine learning. Is that different from AI, or is that a type of AI?
It's a subset of AI.
Okay.
It got its start in the 1980s, and it's basically about teaching computers by showing them examples rather than hard coding every rule.
So instead of programming if this, then that,
Right.
it's more like showing someone how to ride a bike by example
Exactly.
versus giving them a huge instruction manual.
Yeah, and Google Cloud actually breaks down the machine learning process into 7 key steps.
7 steps.
7 steps.
That sounds pretty involved.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's helpful to kind of see how it works.
Okay.
The first step is you gather all the data you need, so like pictures of cats, if you're teaching an AI to recognize cats.
So it's like gathering all the ingredients before you start baking a cake.
I like that analogy. Once you have all your ingredients, then you have to make sure they're organized and in a format the AI can understand.
Okay.
And then you choose a model that's right for the task. It's like picking the right recipe for the kind of dish you want to make.
So different AI tasks require different types of models.
Exactly. Then comes a training phase.
Yeah, okay.
You feed the model most of your prepared data, and you let it learn the patterns and start making predictions. It's like letting it practice before the big game.
So it's kind of like giving the model a practice test
Yeah,
based on real-world examples.
exactly.
Okay.
And once it's done training, you test it with the remaining data to see how well it performs.
Uh-huh.
This is like grading the practice test to see if it's actually learning.
Gotcha. And if it's not performing well.
Then you can tweak its settings to try and improve its performance.
Okay.
Think of it like fine-tuning a recipe to get the flavor just right.
So it's a process of constantly refining the model until it gets it right.
You got it. And once it's performing well, you can finally use it to make predictions on new data. It's like putting all that learning into action.
Okay, that's a lot more complicated than I initially thought. But it makes sense, though. Teaching a machine to think can't be simple.
Right.
But speaking of complicated, you mentioned that machine learning was a big driver in the AI boom. But I keep hearing about deep learning. Is that something totally different?
It's definitely related, but it takes things to another level.
Okay.
Deep learning is like machine learning's superpowered cousin.
Okay.
It's the technology behind things like self-driving cars and facial recognition.
Oh, wow.
It really took off around 2010, and it's been changing the game ever since.
So what makes deep learning so deep?
It all comes down to neural networks.
Okay.
These are complex networks that are designed to mimic the way our brains work.
Uh-huh.
The deep part refers to the fact that these networks can have many layers, allowing them to learn extremely complex patterns.
So instead of just analyzing data on the surface, deep learning digs deep to understand the nuances.
Exactly. Think about like self-driving cars.
Yeah.
A regular machine learning model might be able to recognize a stop sign based on its shape and color, but a deep learning model can analyze the entire scene.
Oh.
Recognize pedestrians or other cars, traffic signals, and even predict what they'll do next.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So deep learning gives AI a much deeper understanding of the world.
exactly. And that deeper understanding helps them tackle much more complex tasks. But while deep learning is powerful, it's not always the right tool for every job.
Okay.
It requires a ton of data and computing power, and sometimes a simpler machine learning model is more than enough.
So it's about choosing the right tool for the job.
Right.
Deep learning may be the rock star of AI, but regular machine learning still has its place.
You got it. In fact, they often work together to create even more powerful systems. Now let's talk about how people actually build these AI systems.
Okay, do developers have to start from scratch every time?
Thankfully, no. There are pre-made kits called AI frameworks
Okay.
that make building and deploying AI models much easier.
So these frameworks are like building blocks for creating AI systems.
Exactly. Think of them as toolkits that provide pre-written code and resources to help developers build and train models much faster.
Okay,
It's like having a set of pre-made parts instead of having to build everything from raw materials.
that makes sense. So what are some of the most popular frameworks out there?
Two of the biggest names are TensorFlow and Apache Spark.
Okay.
They're both open source, which means they're free to use and modify, and they're used all over the world.
Okay, TensorFlow and Apache Spark, but what's the difference between them? Are they better for different types of AI tasks?
They definitely have their strengths.
Okay.
TensorFlow, for example, is really user-friendly, and it's known for creating machine learning models. It also runs super fast on GPUs, which are special computer chips designed for handling complex AI calculations.
So if I wanted to build a model to predict what videos will go viral, TensorFlow would be a good choice.
You could definitely give it a shot. And if you're dealing with massive amounts of data, Apache Hadoop might be a better fit.
Okay.
It's specifically designed to manage and process huge data sets, breaking down complex problems into smaller, manageable tasks.
So Hadoop is like the heavy lifter of the AI world.
Exactly. And then there's Apache Spark, which combines aspects of both.
Okay.
It's great for analyzing huge data sets, but it's also super fast and can handle real-time data like streaming information. It often works alongside Hadoop as a dynamic data processing duo.
Okay, so TensorFlow for user-friendliness, Hadoop for heavy lifting, and Spark for speed and real-time data. I'm starting to get the hang of this.
You're doing great. But you brought up an interesting point about Spark and Hadoop working together.
Yeah.
Do they always go hand in hand, or can they be used separately?
That's a good question. It seems like sometimes they're a package deal and sometimes they fly solo.
You've hit the nail on the head. Spark and Hadoop are like a power couple. Sometimes they're amazing together, but they can also function independently depending on what you need to accomplish.
Okay, so Spark and Hadoop are sometimes a power couple, sometimes solo artists. I like that.
Yeah.
But what are the key differences between them? What makes each one unique?
One big difference is speed. Spark is usually much faster, especially for smaller tasks or when you need to process data in real time.
What makes Spark so speedy?
It's all about how it uses memory. Spark takes advantage of RAM, which is your computer's short-term memory, to process information quickly.
Okay.
This lets it access and work with data much faster than Hadoop, which stores data on your hard drive.
So Spark is like the quick thinker who can juggle multiple ideas at once,
Right.
while Hadoop is more like the meticulous researcher who takes their time to thoroughly analyze every detail.
That's a great way to put it. However, just like a quick thinker might struggle with a complex research project,
Uh-huh.
Spark can hit limitations with extremely massive data sets.
Okay.
That's where Hadoop's strengths come in.
Okay, so speed is one difference. What about cost?
Cost is definitely something to consider. Hadoop is generally more affordable because it can use cheaper, slower storage.
Uh,
Spark, on the other hand, can get expensive because it needs a lot of RAM, and RAM can be pricey.
so Hadoop is budget-friendly, while Spark is the premium high-performance choice.
Exactly. It all depends on what you need, and your budget. If you need lightning-fast processing for real-time data, Spark might be worth the investment.
Right.
But if you're working with huge data sets and need to watch your budget, Hadoop might be the better option.
So it's like choosing between a sports car and a reliable truck.
Yeah.
Both will get you where you need to go, but with different strengths and costs. But with all this talk about Spark and Hadoop, is TensorFlow out of the picture?
No, at all. TensorFlow is still fantastic for building and training machine learning models, which is an essential part of many data processing tasks.
Okay.
You'll often see it working alongside Spark or Hadoop, especially when machine learning is involved.
So it's a team effort with each framework playing a part in creating a complete AI solution.
Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about AI.
Uh-huh.
It's constantly evolving with new frameworks and approaches popping up all the time.
This has been an incredible journey so far. I feel like I'm starting to understand the different pieces of the AI puzzle.
I'm glad to hear it. And remember, this is just the beginning.
Yeah,
The world of AI is vast, and there's always more to discover.
definitely. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back and talk about a specific type of AI that's been making a lot of headlines lately, generative AI.
Generative AI is definitely a hot topic.
It is.
It's the technology behind some pretty incredible things like AI creating images, writing text, composing music, even generating computer code.
The AI that can write music? That's both amazing and a little bit scary. How does that even work? Does it just have access to every song ever written and then mash them all together?
It's a bit more sophisticated than that. Generative AI, particularly those using deep learning, are trained on enormous amounts of data. So in the case of music, it might be trained on thousands of hours of music from different genres and styles.
Wow.
From that, it learns the patterns and nuances of music and uses that knowledge to create something new.
So it's not just copying existing music, it's actually understanding the principles of music and using them to create something original.
Exactly. That's what makes generative AI so fascinating.
Wow.
It's not about mimicking or replicating. It's about creating something new and potentially groundbreaking.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here, but what are some real-world examples of generative AI in action? Besides AI-composed symphonies, of course.
Well, one area where it's already making waves is content creation.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a writer with writer's block.
Okay.
Instead of staring at a blank page, you could use a generative AI tool to spark ideas,
Okay.
write different drafts, or even create entire storylines.
So it's like having an AI writing partner.
Exactly. And it's not just writing. Generative AI is being used to create stunning visuals, realistic 3D models, and even personalized marketing campaigns. The possibilities are vast.
This is blowing my mind. It feels like we're on the verge of a creative revolution powered by AI. But I have to ask, with all this talk of AI creating content, what happens to human creators? Are we all going to be replaced by robots?
That's a question a lot of people are asking, and it's understandable.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that AI is a tool.
Okay.
Just like a paintbrush doesn't replace a painter.
Right.
Generative AI doesn't replace human creativity.
So it's more about augmentation than replacement.
Yeah.
AI can help us be more creative, but it can't fully replicate human creativity.
Exactly. AI can help us overcome writer's block, spark new ideas, and even automate certain tasks. But it's still up to us humans to bring the vision, the emotion, and the unique perspective that makes art truly meaningful.
That's reassuring. There's something special about the human touch, the passion and emotion we pour into our creative work.
Absolutely. And I believe that's where the true potential of AI lies. Not in replacing us, but in collaborating with us,
Right.
augmenting our abilities and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
I love that perspective. It's about humans and AI working together,
Yes.
each bringing their strengths to the table. So as we continue to explore AI, what's next? What are the frontiers we're looking at?
Well, one really exciting area is developing AI systems that can not only generate content, but also understand and respond to human emotions.
Wow.
Imagine an AI therapist that can empathize with your feelings, or a tutor that can tailor its teaching style to your individual needs.
That sounds incredible. It's like taking AI beyond just processing information and into the realm of human connection.
Precisely. And that's where things get really interesting. As AI evolves and becomes more intertwined with our lives, the line between human and machine intelligence will likely become even more blurred.
That's exciting and a bit daunting. It makes you think about the nature of consciousness, what intelligence really is, even the future of humanity.
You're right. As we keep exploring AI's possibilities, we need to be having these conversations and thinking critically about its implications.
I couldn't agree more. You mentioned that AI has been around since the 1950s. What were those early days like? Were they building robots in garages and dreaming of flying cars?
There were definitely dreamers. They were mathematicians, philosophers, and computer scientists who saw the potential of machines that could think and learn like humans. But those early days also had a lot of hype and unrealistic expectations.
That makes sense. It seems like any new technology starts with a lot of excitement and optimism, but then reality sets in, and progress is often slower and more challenging than people initially anticipated.
You hit the nail on the head, and AI has definitely had its ups and downs.
Huh?
There were periods of rapid progress followed by what are called AI winters,
Oh.
where funding dried up and research slowed down.
So what caused those AI winters? Was it a lack of technology or was it something else?
It was usually a combination of things. Sometimes the technology wasn't there yet. Computers back then just weren't powerful enough for real AI.
Right.
Other times, researchers made big promises that the technology couldn't quite live up to.
So it's the classic case of hype exceeding reality. But if AI went through those periods of stagnation, what brought us to this current boom?
A few key things happen. First, there were massive leaps in computing power.
Okay.
Faster processors and better algorithms made it possible to train AI on much larger data sets, which led to much better results.
So the computer hardware finally caught up with the ambition of the AI pioneers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then came the rise of big data.
Uh-huh.
With the internet and the explosion of digital devices, we suddenly had access to more data than ever before, and that data is what AI needs to learn and improve.
So it's like AI finally had enough food to eat.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, we saw the development of new AI techniques, especially deep learning, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
Deep learning algorithms are incredibly good at making sense of complex data and solving problems that used to stump traditional AI.
So a perfect storm of better tech, more data, and a breakthrough in algorithms. It sounds like everything came together to create this AI renaissance we're seeing now.
You got it. And now we're seeing the results everywhere, from self-driving cars to personalized medicine to AI-powered art and music.
This has been an amazing exploration of AI. We've covered so much ground, from the history to the different types of AI to the tools and frameworks that make it all happen.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. And we're not done yet. There's still so much more to discuss, especially about the impact of AI on society and the big questions it raises about our future.
That's right. But before we dive into those big questions, I think it's time to take a break.
Sounds good. Let's regroup and continue our AI adventure in part 2.
Hmm.
So, picking up where we left off, it's really fascinating to see how AI is already changing the world around us.
It really is. But I think what's even more mind-boggling is the potential impact it could have on the future. We touched on how AI could reshape creative fields, but what about other areas of life? Like, how will AI affect the way we work?
That's a big question, and one that a lot of people are thinking about. As AI gets smarter, it can do more and more tasks that humans used to do.
Right.
And it's natural to wonder if robots are going to, take over our jobs.
Yeah, the idea of being replaced by a machine isn't exactly comforting, but I guess technological advancements have always shifted the job market, right?
Absolutely. Think about the invention of the automobile.
Okay.
It pretty much wiped out the horse-drawn carriage industry,
Right.
but it also created tons of new jobs in manufacturing, transportation, and other fields. AI is likely to be similar. It'll disrupt some industries,
Uh-huh.
but it'll also open up new opportunities.
So it's less about AI versus humans and more about humans and AI working together.
Exactly. The key is adapting and developing new skills that will allow us to thrive in an AI-driven world. We need to figure out how to work alongside these systems, not fear them.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the ethical side of things? We're talking about machines making decisions that could have a huge impact on people's lives. How can we be sure those decisions are fair and unbiased?
Yeah, that's a crucial point, and it's something that researchers and policymakers are working hard to address. A big challenge is that AI systems are only as good as the data they learn from. If the data is biased, the AI will likely perpetuate those biases.
So it's all about ensuring that the data is fair and representative.
Precisely. We need to be really careful about what we feed these AI systems.
Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But even if we solve the data bias problem, what about accountability? Like if an AI makes a mistake, who's responsible? The programmer, the company that built it, or the AI itself?
That's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. It's a complex issue that we'll need to, keep discussing as AI becomes more integrated into our lives.
Right.
But it's a conversation we need to have now, not later.
It's definitely a lot to think about. But before we get too lost in the future, I'm curious about the history of AI. We talked about those early pioneers in the 1950s. What were their goals? What kind of AI were they building back then?
Those early AI researchers were incredibly ambitious. They were dreaming of machines that could truly think like humans, solve complex problems, and maybe even understand emotions.
It sounds like they were way ahead of their time.
They were. But the technology back then just couldn't keep up with their ambitions. Computers were much less powerful, and the algorithms weren't as sophisticated as what we have today.
So even though they had the vision, the tools just weren't there yet.
Exactly, and that led to a lot of frustration and disappointment. There were periods where progress stalled, funding dried up, and people started to lose faith in AI's potential.
Those were the AI winters you mentioned earlier.
That's right. It wasn't just about the technology, though. Sometimes researchers overhyped what AI could do, and when it didn't live up to those expectations, people became disillusioned.
So it was a combination of technological limitations and overblown promises.
Precisely. But despite the setbacks, there were always researchers who kept pushing forward, believing that AI had the potential to revolutionize the world.
And eventually those efforts paid off, leading to the incredible advancements we're seeing today.
Exactly. Several things came together to reignite the AI boom. The first was the dramatic increase in computing power. Computers got faster and more efficient, making it possible to train AI models on much larger and more complex data sets.
So it's like the computers finally caught up with the ambition of the early AI pioneers.
Exactly. And around the same time, the internet exploded, and we entered the era of big data. Suddenly, there was a massive amount of information available for AI systems to learn from.
So it's like AI finally had enough food to eat.
Exactly. And finally, there were breakthroughs in AI algorithms, especially the development of deep learning techniques proved to be incredibly effective at analyzing complex data and solving problems that had previously stumped AI researchers.
So a perfect storm of technological advancements, an abundance of data, and a breakthrough in algorithms. It sounds like everything came together to create the AI renaissance we're experiencing now.
You nailed it. And the results are all around us, from self-driving cars and virtual assistants to personalized medicine and AI-powered art.
It's amazing to see how far AI has come, and even more exciting to think about where it might go next. But before we get too caught up in the future, I want to come back to something you said earlier, the idea of AI understanding and responding to human emotions.
Ah, yes. That's a fascinating area of research, and it gets to the heart of what it means to be human. Imagine an AI system that could not only process information, but also sense your emotions and react accordingly.
That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But researchers are already making progress in this area. They're developing AI systems that can recognize facial expressions, analyze tone of voice, and even detect subtle changes in body language.
So it's like giving AI emotional intelligence.
Exactly. And the potential applications are mind-blowing. Imagine a therapist who could not only listen to your problems, but also truly understand and empathize with your feelings, or a virtual assistant that could sense when you're stressed and offer helpful suggestions or calming music.
Those are incredible possibilities. But it also raises some ethical concerns. If AI can understand our emotions, could it also be used to manipulate us?
That's a valid concern, and it's something we need to consider carefully. As with any powerful technology, AI can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to ensure that it's developed and used responsibly and ethically.
I agree, but despite the potential risks, I can't help but be fascinated by the possibilities. The idea of AI understanding human emotions opens up a whole new realm of potential applications.
It certainly does, and it raises some fundamental questions about what it means to be human and what it means to be intelligent. As AI continues to evolve, the line between human intelligence and artificial intelligence is likely to become increasingly blurred.
That's a pretty mind-blowing thought. It makes you wonder what the future holds for both humans and AI.
It certainly does, and that's what makes this such an exciting time to be alive. We're witnessing the birth of a new era, and it's up to us to shape the future. of this incredible technology.
This conversation is absolutely fascinating, but I think we need to take another pause here.
Agreed. We've covered a lot of ground. Let's pick up this thread in part 3.
Welcome back. It feels like we've been on this incredible journey exploring AI.
We have. It's been quite the deep dive.
And as we wrap things up, I think it's time to think about, what this all means for us. How is AI going to affect our lives, our societies, even our future?
You're absolutely right. It's easy to get caught up in the technical details, but at the end of the day, it's the impact on our lives that truly matters.
Exactly. And speaking of impact, one of the things I keep hearing about is AI's effect on jobs.
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
As AI gets better at doing more and more things, it's only natural to wonder if robots are going to take over our jobs.
Right. You mentioned the automobile earlier, how it replaced horse-drawn carriages, but then created all these new industries. Do you think AI is going to be similar?
I think so. It's not about AI replacing humans entirely. It's more about AI changing what kinds of jobs are out there.
Okay.
Some jobs will definitely become automated, but new opportunities will also pop up.
So it's not so much about, being scared of losing our jobs,
Right.
but about adapting and being ready for the new jobs that AI will create.
Exactly. We should be focusing on building the skills and knowledge that will be needed in a world powered by AI.
Like what kind of skills?
Well, for example, there's going to be a big need for people who can design, build, and maintain AI systems.
That makes sense.
We'll also need people who can understand and analyze all the data that AI produces, and of course, we'll need people who can think about the ethical and social impacts of all this.
So instead of being replaced by robots, we need to learn how to work with them.
That's the key. It's about humans and AI working together, each using their own strengths to reach common goals.
Okay, that makes sense. But even if we solve the job situation, there's still other things to think about, like ethics. How do we make sure AI is used responsibly and doesn't make existing biases or inequalities worse?
Those are really important questions, and a lot of smart people are working on them. One approach is to try to create AI systems that are transparent so we can understand how they make decisions and spot any biases.
So it's about making the AI's decision-making process clear.
Exactly. And another crucial area is fairness and accountability in AI. How do we make sure AI treats everyone equally, regardless of their race, gender, or income? And if AI makes a mistake, who takes the blame?
Those are tough questions. It feels like we're in uncharted territory.
We are. It's a really exciting and challenging time. We're at the very beginning of a technological revolution, and we have the power to shape AI so that it benefits all of humanity.
It's a big responsibility, but I'm also excited about how AI could help solve some of the world's biggest problems.
Right.
Imagine AI helping to find new medical cures, fight climate change, or even create a more just and equal world.
Those are just some of the incredible possibilities, and that's why everyone needs to be involved in this conversation, not just scientists and engineers. AI is going to affect every single one of us, so we all need to have a say in how it develops.
I couldn't agree more. This deep dive has really opened my eyes. I feel like I have a much better grasp on AI, from its history to its potential to change our future.
That's fantastic to hear, and this is just the beginning of your AI journey. There's so much more to learn and discover.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who want to keep learning about AI, I highly recommend checking out the I Love AI YouTube channel. It's a great way to stay updated on all the latest AI developments.
It is, and remember, the future of AI is up to us. The more we understand about this technology, the better we can make sure it's used to make the world a better place.
Well said. And on that note, it's time to wrap up our AI deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey.